Right now, like as you're listening to this, there is an 80,000-pound rolling battering ram just barreling down the interstate at 65 miles an hour.
Oh, yeah.
And just a few dozen feet away, you've got families in minivans who are completely oblivious to the sheer physics at play.
Right. It's wild to think about.
It really is. But to keep that massive vehicle from destroying the roads, or worse, causing a catastrophic accident, there is this invisible automated net.
Uh-huh.
It's reading the truck's temperature, its weight, its legal history, and it does all this before the driver even thinks about touching the brakes.
Yeah, if you've ever driven down a highway, you've definitely seen the off-ramps for way stations.
Exactly. You probably just glance over at the long line of 18-wheelers, think of it as, a mild roadside inconvenience for the drivers, and keep right on cruising.
It's just background scenery to most of us, like a minor traffic anomaly that doesn't really apply to passenger cars.
Right. But the mission of our deep dive today is to completely shatter that illusion.
Absolutely, because those way stations aren't just roadside bathroom scales for trucks.
Not at all. They are actually part of an incredibly high-tech law enforcement network hiding right in plain sight.
And it literally dictates the flow of the entire modern supply chain.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're going to look well beyond the physical concrete and the scales.
Right, to understand exactly why this invisible network matters to everyone who relies on transported goods.
Which is literally all of us. I mean, every time you buy groceries, order a package, or put gas in your car, you are interacting with the end result of what happens at these way stations.
Exactly. We're moving from your everyday highway experience into the gritty, highly regulated reality of the commercial trucking industry.
And the very first thing that completely resets your perspective is the threshold for who actually has to stop.
Yeah, it's not just those massive semi-trucks with the big sleeper cabs.
Right. In most states, if you are driving a commercial vehicle over 10,000 pounds, you are legally required to pull in.
Which is, really not as heavy as you might think.
Not at all.
I mean, a standard heavy-duty pickup truck, like an F-350 pulling a landscaping trailer or a commercial car hauler, can easily hit that 10,000-pound mark.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Now, states do vary on this. Texas and Arizona, for example, push that threshold up to 26,001 pounds to keep the volume manageable.
Makes sense.
But the bottom line is, if that way station sign is flashing open or showing a green directional arrow, and your vehicle meets that state's criteria, you don't have a choice.
You have to exit the highway.
Exactly. You pull over.
Okay, let's talk about the big number, though. The primary weight limit for interstate highways is 80,000 pounds.
Right. That is the maximum gross vehicle weight allowed without special permits.
But the actual physics behind why that number exists is where things get serious. We aren't just picking 80,000 arbitrarily because it's, a nice round number.
No, the physics are frankly terrifying if you ignore them. When you exceed 80,000 pounds, a few critical things start to happen to the reality of driving.
Like what?
Well, first, stopping distances increase dramatically. An 80,000-pound truck already takes the length of nearly 2 football fields to come to a complete stop from highway speeds.
2 football fields. That's insane.
Yeah, and if you add another 5 or 10,000 pounds, the brakes simply cannot dissipate the heat fast enough. The truck essentially becomes a runaway object.
Wow.
And second, there's the stress on the infrastructure.
Right, the wear and tear on the asphalt.
Exactly. But it's more than just wear and tear. The road deterioration and the strain on bridges accelerate exponentially, not linearly, with every extra 1,000 pounds.
Really? Exponentially.
Yeah, civil engineers use something called the bridge formula. It doesn't just look at total weight, but how that weight is distributed across the vehicle's axles.
Ah, okay.
If you have too much weight concentrated on a single set of dual tires, it acts like a giant cookie cutter on the highway pavement.
A cookie cutter? Oh, that paints a picture.
Yeah, it literally pushes the asphalt down and creates those deep, dangerous ruts you sometimes see in the right-hand lane.
So, weight enforcement is fundamentally about keeping the physical roads intact and keeping the public safe.
Precisely.
But it's also an economic equalizer, isn't it? Like, if I'm running a trucking company legally at 80,000 pounds and a competitor is secretly loading their trucks to 95,000 pounds?
They're moving more freight per trip.
Right. They can underbid me on shipping rates because they are cheating the physics of the road.
Exactly. It prevents bad actors from gaining an unfair financial advantage by illegally overloading their trailers. It levels the playing field for the carriers who are actually following the law.
But the weight is really just the pretext, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is that the simple act of checking the weight is very often just bait.
Just bait. Like, if you think stopping just means hopping on a scale to check that 80,000-pound limit, you are missing about 75% of the picture.
Yeah. The moment those tires hit the concrete at the weigh station, the driver is entering a massive matrix of compliance checks.
You've got the weight enforcement, sure, but then you have safety inspections.
Right. They're looking at brakes, tires, lights, steering columns, and cargo securement.
They are digging into electronic logging devices too, right? To ensure the driver hasn't been behind the wheel for like 16 hours straight.
Exactly. They are checking medical certificates and the driver's commercial driver's license.
And we haven't even touched on the tax and credential side of
Oh,
things.
yeah. Officers are actively verifying operating authority and checking fuel tax reporting through the International Fuel Tax Agreement,
Well,
or IFTA.
right, because commercial trucks pay fuel taxes based on where they drive, not just where they buy the diesel.
Exactly. The weigh station acts as an audit point to make sure states are getting their fair share of road tax revenue.
And on top of all that, you have hazardous materials enforcement, verifying that the flammable or toxic chemicals in the trailer are properly placarded and safely secured.
Yep.
So a weigh station isn't just a giant bathroom scale for trucks.
No.
It's actually more like a combination of a TSA security checkpoint, an IRS audit, and a mechanic's garage all rolled into one.
That is a perfect way to put it. Because when that truck rolls onto the static scale at 5 miles an hour, the inspector in the booth is watching intently.
Oh, I bet.
If they spot any red flag, like a tire that looks a little low or a burned-out taillight, it instantly triggers a full-blown roadside inspection.
Or even just the sound of a brake leak.
Yes, an audible hiss of an air brake leak. Or even if the driver just looks visibly exhausted or nervous.
Wow. And what happens then?
They will pull that truck around back, and an inspector will physically crawl underneath it with a creeper to measure the pushrod travel on the air brakes.
That sounds intense.
It is. The scale is just a mechanism to get the vehicle stationary so they can look at the overall compliance of that human and that machine.
Okay, I have to stop you there because this raises a massive logistical wall.
How so?
If these weigh stations are conducting what are essentially pop-up IRS audits and full mechanical teardowns on the side of the interstate, why isn't traffic backed up all the way to the next state?
That's a great question.
I mean, if every truck over 10,000 pounds has to exit, the highway would be at a permanent standstill.
And that brings us to the invisible tech matrix. The reason traffic keeps moving and the reason you don't see 40-mile-long traffic jams of semi-trucks is pre-screening.
Right. The enforcement network has essentially decoupled the inspection process from the physical concrete building.
Exactly. Long before a truck even reaches the 1-mile warning sign for the weigh station, an array of advanced technology is already interrogating it.
Let's get into the mechanics of this, starting with WIM.
Weigh-in-motion systems.
Right. These are sensors physically embedded into the actual highway, capable of measuring a truck's weight from a half-mile away while the truck is literally doing 65 miles an hour.
It sounds impossible, right?
I'm genuinely struggling with the physics of that. How exactly does asphalt measure weight at highway speeds?
Think of weigh-in-motion sensors like microscopic strain gauges.
Okay.
When an 80,000-pound truck rolls over a specific section of pavement, the concrete or asphalt actually bends and deflects microscopically.
Oh, wow. I wouldn't have thought concrete bends.
It's an invisible compression. The WIM sensors are embedded in cuts in the road surface, and they measure that exact structural strain in milliseconds.
That is wild.
Yeah, and the system's computer then takes that strain measurement, calculates it against the speed the truck is traveling, and instantly estimates the weight of each individual axle as it passes over.
And while the road itself is weighing the truck, you've got automated vehicle identification systems, right?
Yep, AVI.
High-definition cameras mounted on overhead gantries, capturing the license plate, reading the US DOT numbers printed on the door of the cab, and identifying any hazardous materials placards, all happening in a fraction of a second.
Right, and it cross-references those DOT numbers against federal databases instantly.
So it's checking everything on the fly.
Exactly. It checks the carrier's safety rating, whether their insurance is active, and if they have any outstanding warrants or out-of-service orders.
Wait, here's where it gets really interesting to me. There is another layer that sounds almost like science fiction.
You're talking about vehicle waveform identification, or VWI.
Yes. The concept here is that it analyzes the truck's physical characteristics to create a unique digital profile, like a digital fingerprint.
Exactly.
But how does a truck have a waveform?
Well, every truck bounces differently.
Bounces.
Well, when a truck is loaded with heavy steel coils versus, say, lightweight toilet paper, Its suspension reacts uniquely to the road surface.
Oh, I see.
As it passes over those in-road sensors, the specific rhythm of the axles, the distance between them, and the dynamic bounce of the suspension create a specific electronic signature, a waveform.
That is crazy. So if a truck tries to bypass a weigh station, or if it swaps a license plate, the system can actually recognize the truck based on its physical waveform fingerprint and flag it down the road.
It can. It's incredibly advanced.
Okay, I'm following the strain gauges and the waveforms, but there's also thermal imaging,
Yes, thermal and overview cameras.
and I'm trying to wrap my head around the logistics of thermal imaging at highway speeds. I get that a thermal camera can spot a cold brake or a hot tire, but how does it distinguish that from just ambient weather?
What do you mean?
Like, if a truck is driving through a freezing rainstorm in November, isn't the entire truck just cold? How does a camera spot a cold brake and flag that as a failure?
Ah, okay. It's all about the baseline differential. You have to remember what a brake actually does.
Right, it creates friction.
Yes, it turns kinetic energy into thermal energy. It uses immense friction to slow the truck down.
Okay.
So even in a freezing rainstorm, if a driver has been using their brakes to navigate highway traffic, those brake drums should be glowing hot on a thermal camera.
Oh, that makes total sense.
Yeah. If the camera scans an 18-wheeler and sees that 17 of the wheel ends are glowing orange with heat, but one wheel is pitch black and freezing cold, that means that specific brake isn't engaging at all.
It's doing zero work.
Exactly. Conversely, if one wheel bearing is glowing white hot compared to the rest, it means it's about to catch fire from unlubricated friction. The system spots these temperature anomalies instantly.
So the system isn't looking for an absolute temperature, it's looking for the odd one out.
Exactly. And this allows the enforcement network to practice a highly targeted strategy, triage.
Right, because they are not stopping everyone.
No, they're using this invisible, automated net to target visible equipment concerns, unusual driving behavior, or trucks that belong to companies with historically bad safety records.
So if you're a good driver with a well-maintained truck and you're loaded correctly, the in-cab transponder beeps, the weigh station sign stays green, and you just blow right past it at 65 miles an hour.
It's seamless.
But if that invisible net catches something like a cold brake, an overweight axle on the wind sensor, or an expired I-have-to-tax account, the transponder flashes red. You are pulled in.
And the consequences of seeing that red light go far beyond a simple 3 to 5 minute delay to roll over the static scale.
Time is literally money in the supply chain.
It really is.
When you actually map out the reality of getting pulled around back for a full level 1 inspection, the ripple effects are staggering. We're talking 45 minutes to an hour of lost driving time.
Easily. And that translates directly to missed delivery windows at the warehouse.
Right. It means increased fuel consumption from idling in line. It means immense stress for the driver whose legal hours of service are ticking away.
And that's if you pass the inspection.
Exactly. If you fail, you're getting citations, financial fines, and potentially an out-of-service order.
Right, where a trooper literally puts a sticker on the windshield and says, "You cannot move this truck until a mechanic drives out here and fixes it."
And all of those outcomes, the passes, the failures, the violations, they feed directly into a federal database.
Yes, they do.
They formulate what is essentially the credit score of the trucking industry. It's called the Inspection Selection System, or the ISS score.
The ISS score, right.
I love this concept because if you think about it like a consumer credit score, it makes perfect sense.
It really is a perfect analogy.
Like, if you have a great credit score, an ISS score between 1 and 49, you get the VIP Express lane.
Yeah.
You qualify for bypass programs, you get massive financial savings, you keep rolling, and you barely ever interact with the physical weigh station.
But if your score tanks, if you're sitting between 75 and 100 because of past violations, you are viewed as a high-risk borrower.
You get audited and pulled in for inspections constantly. And just like a bad financial credit score makes everything in life more expensive, like your mortgage rates go up, you can't get a loan, a bad ISS score actively destroys a motor carrier's profit margins.
It does. When you have a poor safety record, which is tracked by the Federal Compliant Safety Accountability System, your insurance premiums skyrocket.
Wow.
You get audited at the terminal level more frequently. And most importantly, major shippers will simply refuse to let you haul their freight due to liability.
Right. They won't risk their cargo on a high-risk carrier.
Yeah.
But look at the flip side. Look at the massive financial return on investment for carriers who maintain perfect credit and utilize in-cab bypass programs like DriveWise or PrePass. The hard dollars are fascinating.
Oh, the savings are incredible.
Every single time a truck gets the green light to skip a way station, it saves an average of 7 minutes of drive time, about half a gallon of diesel fuel, and roughly $10.65 in total operational costs.
That sounds small until you scale it across an enterprise.
Exactly. If a mid-sized fleet of 100 trucks averages just 7 way station bypasses per truck a week, they are saving over $387,000 annually.
Just by legally not stopping.
Right.
And that $387,000 is pure bottom line profit. It requires zero extra effort, just strict compliance.
That's amazing.
But beyond the hard dollars, this highlights a fundamental philosophy in modern freight logistics. Today, predictability matters far more than outright speed.
That makes sense.
Yet brokers and shippers don't just want a truck to drive fast from point A to point B. They want a 100% guarantee that the truck will arrive at the warehouse dock exactly at 2:15 p.m. on Tuesday.
Because modern manufacturing runs on just-in-time inventory.
Exactly.
They don't have back stock. They need those parts right off the truck and onto the assembly line.
Right. So if a carrier has a terrible ISS score and gets pulled into every way station from Ohio to Texas for a 45-minute inspection, their delivery times are completely unpredictable.
They are useless to modern supply chains.
Yes. So reliable compliance isn't just about avoiding a ticket anymore. It's a massive, marketable, competitive advantage.
But maintaining that perfect 1 to 49 credit score is a moving target.
Oh, for sure.
Because what keeps your score perfect in Missouri might actually trigger a severe audit the second you cross the state line into Rhode Island.
That is the tricky part.
Right. If predictability is the holy grail, the fact that the rules dictating that compliance are not uniform across the country is a massive logistical headache.
State-level variations make interstate trucking a jurisdictional minefield. Every state has its own Department of Transportation, its own highway patrol, its own enforcement culture, and its own penalty structure.
Let's look at the I-70 corridor, or just crossing state lines in general.
Okay.
Rhode Island, for example, has some of the most severe overweight penalties in the entire country.
They really do.
Because they are dealing with older, historic infrastructure and dense populations, they do not play around. If you are significantly overweight there, a driver could be hit with tens of thousands of dollars in fines.
It can literally bankrupt an independent operator.
Wow. Meanwhile, a state like Missouri sits at the crossroads of the country, and their approach is much wider. They basically require almost all commercial vehicles to stop, with very few exemptions, to cast as wide a net as possible.
And then you cross into California, and suddenly you are dealing with highly specific, stringent requirements for hazardous materials carriers operating vehicles, even as small as 10,001 pounds. Yeah, a cargo van with certain chemicals is treated with intense scrutiny there.
So a trucker driving cross-country is essentially passing through entirely different legal universes.
Exactly.
The physical truck hasn't changed, the driver hasn't changed, but the legal reality outside the window shifts every time they cross a state line.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you start to see why being a motor carrier or a logistics planner is such a complex daily puzzle.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
You aren't just driving a truck. You are navigating a patchwork of 50 different sovereign legal jurisdictions while trying to maintain that perfect ISS credit score.
And it's not just state laws that are shifting, right? The federal landscape is actively evolving right beneath their tires.
Oh, absolutely. We see this clearly with new federal legislative proposals.
Take the Wage Act, for instance, which was introduced in late 2025.
Right.
And we just want to be clear here. We're simply reporting on what the source material says about the act, regardless of where the bill stands in committee today or the politics surrounding it.
Right. The actual provisions in it show exactly where federal enforcement is heading.
Because it isn't just about checking the physical weight anymore. The legislation proposes legally requiring interstate weigh stations to actively verify commercial driver's license credentials and proactively search for irregularities.
It's turning the weigh station into a primary credentialing checkpoint, not just a safety checkpoint.
Exactly. And one of the most significant and specific additions in that proposal is a mandate to verify English language proficiency compliance at the weigh station itself.
Yeah, that's a major shift.
Imagine the human element of that. A driver who speaks English as a second language crosses a state line, gets pulled into a weigh station because of a random wind sensor flag, and suddenly they're facing an on-the-spot language proficiency check by a state trooper.
Right.
If they fail to communicate complex commercial vehicle terms adequately, they could be placed out of service.
The stated goal of proposals like that aligns with broader federal efforts to standardize and strengthen commercial driver qualifications.
To make sure everyone is on the same page.
Right, ensuring every driver can read highway signs, converse with emergency responders, and understand complex regulatory documents.
But it fundamentally changes the nature of the stop.
It does. And regardless of where anyone stands on the politics or the specifics of those legislative proposals, the reality for the truck driver remains exactly the same.
The net of enforcement is continually getting wider.
Yes, the technology is getting sharper, and the standard for what constitutes a compliant driver is always shifting.
It really reframes the whole concept of a way station. I mean, we started this deep dive talking about driving down the highway, listening to music, looking at a line of trucks, and thinking of it as a mild inconvenience.
Yeah, just a roadside pit stop.
But knowing all of this, the microscopic bending of the asphalt to measure weight, the digital waveforms bouncing off suspensions, the thermal cameras scanning for freezing brakes in a rainstorm, and the massive financial stakes of an ISS credit score, you really have to look differently at the highway the next time you pass one of these facilities.
You absolutely do. It's not a pit stop.
It is a live interaction with a nationwide enforcement network that is actively shaping the safety and profitability of the entire country.
The next time you're on the interstate, pay attention to the gantries over the road. Pay attention to the cuts in the pavement.
It's everywhere once you know to look for it.
It really is. It's worth remembering that every single item you buy, from the fresh produce in your local grocery store to the drywall in your house, is priced, routed, and scheduled based on this hidden dance between commercial trucks and high-tech way stations.
Right. If that network operates efficiently, the bad actors are removed, goods remain affordable, and shelves stay stocked.
Exactly. It's the invisible, highly regulated infrastructure that makes modern consumer life possible.
It is. But safety and compliance ultimately reward carriers with the ultimate prize, right?
Yes. Speed, invisibility, and bypass capability. The better you are, the less you actually interact with the physical enforcement stations.
But as this enforcement technology becomes increasingly automated, relentlessly expensive to keep up with, and flawlessly efficient, it raises a significant question about the future of the industry.
It really does. One has to wonder, will the future of freight belong only to the massive mega corporations that can afford the newest trucks and the back office staff to maintain these perfect digital profiles, leaving the independent, classic American trucker permanently stuck in the inspection lane?